So welcome back. We are talking about wastewater treatment, under which we are discussing the secondary treatment aspects. The primary treatment is mainly intended to remove the coarser inorganic particles and small portion of organic solids. The major portion of the treatment that is aimed in the secondary treatment system is the biological solids. The biological solids, they are mainly decomposed by the bacteria, and hence we will go with the biological treatment systems in the secondary treatment of the wastewater, under which we are having an aeration tank and then trickling filter and secondary sedimentation. Secondary sedimentation is a part of either aeration tank or trickling filter. Aeration tank gives the air or oxygen to the biological decomposition and the aerobic decomposition process. The trickling filter, we employ the attached growth process. And to settle the biological solids, either from aeration tank and trickling filter, we go for the secondary sedimentation tank. And what are the sludge which is collected from the sedimentation tank? And part of that will be recycled back, and the remaining will go for sludge digestion methods. So now this is the system what we are talking about. This is all about the primary treatment, raw sewage, screens, community grit chamber, primary sedimentation tank. And now the wastewater is entering into aeration tank, where here in this model, we are supplying air from the bottom through air compressor. And the reaction takes place under aerobic conditions. And what are the biological solids which are coming out? They will be settled down in the secondary clarifier. A part of the sludge is recycled back into the aeration tank, and remaining will be disposed along with the sludge from primary sedimentation tank and the sludge treatment and disposal system. And wastewater, after clearing from the sedimentation tank, is now disposed of either with or without disinfection for specific treatment, for a specific usage purposes. Now let us look at the pattern of biological growth. So here we are seeing two different lines, blue line as well as red color line. Blue line is indicating the amount of food, that is nothing but the organic solids, because bacteria will survive on the carbonaceous matter. So therefore, initially when the wastewater enters into a particular tank where the biological system is undergoing, so the organic content availability is very high. And here the bacterial growth in the tank is very low. So now what we'll do is we'll give some favorable conditions for the bacteria like nutrients and oxygen supply, so that ultimately what will happen initially, the bacteria is not susceptible for the uh, decomposition of the food material. So the reaction process is very slow. You can see this red line, the very slow slope here, very low slope here. And once it get adjusted to the food and environment, and then starts multiplying in big numbers, and that's what is reflected in the red line going up. And similarly, you can see here the food content or organic content is reduced. That means the bacterial content is reduced. And there will be a stage reached at that particular period. Now the decomposition almost stable. That is called as what stationary phase. And afterwards, what you can see in the red line, the bacteria has now multiplied in large numbers. Because at the same time, you can see the amount of food availability is very less. So here the bacteria should survive or microorganisms should survive. How they are going to survive? They will survive only by destroying their own cells. That is how you can see the flattening or going down, the red color line going down with respect to x-axis. So this is called endogenous phase or decay phase. So initial stage where acclimatization is taking place, and bacteria is now getting adjusted to the food environment and what is a safe environment here. It is called lag phase. Here bacterial decomposition is more active here. That's called as log phase. Where this action is more stable, it's called as a stationary phase. Now where the biological growth is now reducing, that is called as a decay phase. So what the more important thing is, this is with respect to time. So it will take more time for the bacteria to undergo the decay phase. So during this particular log phase, it will happen within very small amount of hours. So we have the reaction, biological reaction. All the reactions are now taking place during this log phase period. Now let us look into this model of aerobic decomposition. What we are having, why we are talking about organic matter, you see, organic matter is decomposed by microorganisms under the favorable conditions of oxygen as well as nutrients. They will be converting into carbon dioxide, water, and energy, and new cells. These new cells is now going for multiplication of the bacteriological population. So now, with respect to treatment system, how it is being applied, the influent BOD is now showing that high amount of BOD will be there. High amount of BOD means high amount of organic content is available for the biological treatment. Now that is coming here. You're supplying oxygen in this case. So there will be a synthesis reaction. The forward movement is going on. And subsequently, what you are getting is a new cell growth. And simultaneously, the carbon dioxide is leaving out, and some amount of unused effluent BOD is also going out. The new cell growth is there. This is getting multiplied throughout the period in the tank, and there will be an endogenous respiration. That is nothing but decay phase. Here also, you are supplying oxygen, even for this stage also. Carbon dioxide is released, that is going out, and some amount of excess sludge in the form of dead cells is going out as excess sludge, and some portion is returned back. They're calling as return activated sludge, so that the loop is now completed. So this is how we are going to apply the natural aerobic decomposition cycle into wastewater treatment. Now we are having two different types of mechanisms. One is activated sludge process. Here, the entire contents of the sewage along with biological solids, now they are put up in a tank, and then all the solids and organic content, they are made into a floating condition. In the floating condition, what you are seeing is, you can see, this is the tank. We are allowing the entire contents here. The raw wastewater is coming, and then all the contents are now stirred using an aerator. Because of this, all the solids and wastewater, they will be in floating condition, so that the bacteria can easily reach out to the organic matter and starts decomposing. So this is the condition of the process happening in this mechanism. Because all the solids and the wastewater, they are now total suspended mode, this particular process is called as a suspended growth process. Now another thing is, you see all the contents are totally mixed here in this tank. That's why it's also called as complete mixed process. And then after the reaction is over in this tank, aeration tank, the effluent now coming out of this tank will enter into a second clarifier where organic solids, they will get settled down, leaving clear water above. The clear water will be taken out separately, and all the solids, whatever are there, they are collected at the bottom. Now, because some amount of active life is still remaining for the microorganisms, rather than the short period of what we are keeping in the aeration tank and sedimentation tank, we will try to recycle it. In other words, if we talk about a aeration tank for about 4 hours and another 2 hours with sedimentation tank, Total 6 hours of life only we are utilizing when you are making one complete cycle. But the active life of this biodegradable material or active life of microorganisms is more than this 6 to 7 hours what we are keeping. It will be in days. So we'd like to utilize that particular life so that the process becomes more effective. That's why we will be recycling some amount of the sludge which contains active bacteria. That's why it is called as activated sludge process. So now in this sludge process, what you are seeing is you can see whatever the demand and supply, they are uniformly met across the tank because as we are giving a continuous supply of aeration. When you are making a continuous agitation here, the oxygen from the air will now enter into the water. The oxygen will be in the gaseous phase, this is in water liquid phase. To have the transfer from gas to liquid, we need some sort of a turbulence at the interface. That's what we are creating it through the mechanical aerators. Usually, these aeration tanks, they are having a square configuration so that what are the aerators we are keeping here, they can be centrally placed or symmetrically placed. You can see here, these are the tanks. These are the aerators centrally placed on the platform. All the contents are thoroughly mixed here. So now you can understand from this water, this is going a complete mix of the process. All the contents are thoroughly stirred. And this is the aerator which is normally used for rotating these contents, a surface or subsurface. The other model we are having called as a plug flow process. What you are having is plug flow means basically the wastewater is moving down progressively along the length of the tank. So that means without going the complete mixing in the entire tank. Entire tank means that's different. Here that means it will undergo a radial mixing or some lateral mixing. That means when the water goes in the tank, when it progresses from one direction to the opposite direction, it will have a spiral mode or circular pattern of this type of mixing. So now you can see from this picture, for example, you're having a tank like this. When wastewater is moving in this tank, so it will undergo some sort of spiral mixing here, some sort of spiral mixing here, some sort of spiral mixing here. This is how this is going to mix. By making this type of mixing, it is slowly advancing in the entire tank before it leaves out in the tank. And how it is made here, so we are sending air from the bottom to make the liquid go for different types of mixing in the lateral direction. That's why the contents are mixed only in the longitudinal direction and are in suspension. They do not mix with the rest of the contents in the tank. Air is supplied from the bottom for making this type of movement possible. Then oxygen demand is high at the entry, but it tapers down along the length of the tank because initially itself in the first phase of starting period of or starting length of aeration tank, most of the oxygen is utilized by the wastewater here. So that's why as you go out down the long tank, so there the amount of oxygen requirement may be less, but still we are supplying water, the oxygen or the air continuously or uniformly throughout the tank. So when you're going towards the end, the amount of oxygen supplied or air supplied may not be uh, sufficient. That means oxygen supply or air supply is more than what is required in the tank at that point of flow in the tank. So in such a situation, the oxygen supply can be adjusted along the length of the tank by altering the number of diffusers. We provide some diffusers in the tank to supply the oxygen or air into the tank. How they are? Now you can see these are some of the diffusers. These are some of the diffusers. Now you can see they are having some number of holes, small holes. So you can see the pipe. In this pipe, the air coming from the compressor will be coming down, and then they will be moving into the water. Now you can see how many numbers of diffusers are mounted on the pipe. And when you are mounting this type of diffusers, what you see is you can see a lateral mixing is happening, not a longitudinal mixing, like in the complete mix process. So you can see here only small mixing for a small area, it is happening. That's why it's called as a plug flow system. And another important thing you have to notice is the tank you can see is very long and narrow. So that all the diffusers can be easily placed. Now, after the entire secondary treatment system is over, we are having four different modes of disposal for the effluent. One into the water bodies, one for on-land disposal for irrigation, another into the municipal sewers, another is marine disposal. The municipal sewers option is given only for industrial wastewaters, so that without any treatment or partial treatment, they can discharge into the municipal sewers. That's why the standards are pretty high there. It normally we go for the first two options, or if there are coastal cities are there, then they may go for the last option of marine disposal. The major parameters which you normally consider are suspended solids, BOD, COD, oil and grease, chlorides. Out of these five, the first three are more important in terms of efficiency of wastewater treatment in the system. Now you can see here suspended solids, it should not be greater than 100 milligram per liter in the water bodies. And more than that, it may create a high amount of turbidity. And on land for irrigation, if it is more than 200 milligram per liter, it may clog the pores of the subsoil so that the water may not pass through the subsoil system. And more importantly, if some chemicals are still there, inorganic portion is there where some chlorides, such type of chemicals are still remaining in the wastewater, they may create infertility of the soil, and subsequently that soil may not be useful for any practical utility purposes. That's the reason these limits have been identified. Similarly, BOD should not be more than 30 milligram per liter in the water bodies and 100 milligram per liter in the on land. But sewers, we can allow some higher value because anyhow the domestic sewage will be collected along with the what is flowing in the sewer and subsequently go to the treatment system. And marine disposal, you can see very limited numbers are there, limited options are there, but still they are also going for some higher stringent standards.